In the vibrant but pressure-filled streets of Abuja lived a man named Daniel Ayodele, heir to the Ayodele Group, a conglomerate that owned half the skyline. People called him Young Lion, and he ruled with quiet brilliance. He had access to politicians, owned private jets, and his words moved markets. Yet beneath his fine Italian suits and luxury penthouse in Maidama, Daniel felt trapped, surrounded by opportunists, women who adored his wealth, in a world that loved his name but not his soul. Every night he would sit in his living room, lights dimmed, staring at the city he'd conquered. Do they love me or the man I appear to be? He'd wonder. One rainy night, after discovering his fiancée cheating with his personal accountant, something broke inside him. He didn't throw a tantrum, he didn't yell, he simply vanished, left everything, and made a decision to find out if true love still existed, and if anyone could love a man who seemed to have nothing. Daniel called his personal assistant, Amaka, a sharp, discreet woman who had seen him through his most successful deals. I want to disappear, he said. No cars, no suits, just dust, slippers, and silence. Amaka didn't understand but obeyed. She rented a one-room apartment in the outskirts of Zuba, far from Abuja's polished circles, and Daniel moved in with nothing but a plastic bag and a faded face cap. He began doing menial work, hauling cement at construction sites, washing buses at a park, fetching water for food vendors. Every night he sat under a dim bulb, staring at peeling walls and listening to crickets. But the peace in this poverty was deeper than anything money had ever bought him. Amaka arranged dates through a secret matchmaking app, with women told only this: he used to be successful, but lost everything. None knew he was still the richest man in the capital. The first woman, Jennifer, was a lifestyle YouTuber from Guarimpa. When she saw Daniel in his dusty slippers and patched jeans, her face crumbled into a look of pity-turned-contempt. Is this a prank? She laughed, taking selfies with him before walking away mid-conversation. The second woman, Irene, an economist, brought a notebook. She asked questions like a job interview. How much debt do you have? What's your 5-year survival plan? She never even touched her plate of pepper soup. Daniel remained patient. He wasn't looking for perfection, just someone real. The third date, Blessing, seemed different. She listened, smiled, even spoke about her own tough upbringing. Daniel thought he had found something genuine until she texted at 6 a.m. the next day. My cousin needs to pay school fees. Can you help me with 30,000 naira, please? Just like the others, she didn't love him. She loved what she hoped he still had. That night, Daniel stared out from the cracked window of his small room. No one sees me. They only see what they want to take, he whispered. Fine, let's go deeper. The next day, Amaka delivered torn trousers, a hoodie that barely clung together, and bathroom slippers. He stopped bathing regularly, let his beard grow wild, and took to the streets like a ghost, blending in with beggars and hawkers. He sat in markets and under flyovers, silent. People walked past him like a shadow. A few threw coins. Others insulted him. Some even pretended to help, only to record him for social media clout. He didn't budge. Hidden in the folds of his hoodie was a bank check worth 10 million naira to be given to the first person who showed him pure kindness, without knowing who he really was. On the fifth evening, while the Harmattan winds blew dust through the streets of Gwagwalada, a young woman rushed out of a shop, shielding herself with a worn umbrella. Her name was Naomi Olanrawaju, a tailor and part-time primary school teacher. She stopped when she saw Daniel, soaked and shivering under a zinc shade near a closed stall. Are you okay, sir? She asked, no fear in her eyes, only concern. Without waiting for an answer, Naomi opened her food flask and offered him jollof rice with plantain. I haven't eaten, Daniel mumbled. Then eat, she said, smiling gently. She even wrapped her extra shawl around his shoulders. That night, he followed her to her humble sewing shop. She didn't ask questions. She didn't take photos. She just let him sit quietly under the light of her kerosene lamp. And for the first time in weeks, Daniel felt human again. Days turned to weeks. Daniel became Naomi's helper, carrying rolls of fabric, fixing sewing machines, even learning how to cut straight lines. Naomi had no idea who he was. She just appreciated his calm nature, his willingness to learn, and his humility. One night she asked, "Can you pretend to be my fiancé for my father's birthday in Ilorin?" Her aunties had been mocking her for being single. He agreed, wearing borrowed clothes and arriving in a kiki. At the party, her older cousin mocked him openly. Her ex-boyfriend Kenny, a senior manager at Ayodele Group, sneered and said, "You traded up, Naomi. This one looks like he still uses a Nokia torchlight." Daniel didn't respond, but inside the old version of himself stirred. Still, he stayed quiet, because Naomi's hand in his reminded him of something stronger than pride. The final straw came when Naomi and Daniel attended a friend's naming ceremony in Wusi. Guests whispered behind her back, "Why is she dating a broke man?" Naomi used to have sense. The host eventually asked him to leave, fearing he might embarrass them. Naomi stood up, proud and calm. "You may have ACs and mirrors, but this man has what none of you have: a heart." That night, Daniel called Amaka. "Tomorrow we end this." The next day, 3 luxury black cars rolled into the same compound that had humiliated him. A smartly dressed man walked out and handed Naomi's father a title deed, a gift for allowing Daniel to court his daughter. Phones came out. The man known as Just Daniel suddenly stood tall and announced, "My name is Daniel Ayodele, CEO of Ayodele Group." Social media erupted. Hash from slippers to suit trended. But Daniel wasn't interested in fame. He knelt before Naomi. "You gave me something no one else ever could, your trust. Will you marry me?" She wept, nodded, and the internet cheered. But at home, trouble brewed. His mother, Madame Esther Ayodele, was furious. "You gave up Tenny, the governor's daughter, for a tailor?" His father stayed silent. They gave him an ultimatum: end it or lose his inheritance. Daniel walked away. "I'd rather build peace with a needle and thread than sit in gold with no soul." Naomi, afraid she'd ruin his legacy, quietly left. She moved to a village near Lokoja and began teaching again. She didn't tell him that she was pregnant. Weeks later, Madame Esther attended a charity clinic launch and saw Naomi helping a mother deliver twins. Then she noticed the bump. That night, Esther wept. "I judged her, but she carries your grandchild with dignity," she told her husband. The next day, she gave Daniel her blessing. He found Naomi at the clinic. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. She smiled through tears. "You never did. I just needed to know you'd be okay without me." He knelt, hands on her belly. "Now I'm whole." Soon after, the Ayodele family embraced Naomi. Her wedding wasn't extravagant, but it was filled with joy, music, and the kind of love that made nations believe again. Their wedding in Abuja drew world leaders and community tailors alike. Naomi wore a simple gown she sewed herself. Daniel cried as she walked down the aisle. "I once thought I needed power," he said in his vows, "but all I ever needed was you." Naomi replied, "You came with nothing and gave me everything." Today, Naomi Ayodele runs one of Nigeria's largest women-led tailoring institutes. Daniel is still CEO, but now known not just for business, but for character. And together in a mansion with no gold gates, but hearts full of peace, they raise their child, telling them every night, "We found love where no one dared to look beneath the dust." The end. What do you think? Would you still love someone if they had nothing? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more powerful African tales that inspire the heart.